Walk off on your own or be dragged off in cuffs. Captain Sterling spat, threatening to put Dr. Olivia Clark on a national no-fly list just to steal her first-class seat for a colleague. The cabin watched in hushed judgment as the disruption manager in the charcoal hoodie stood up her dignity in the crosshairs of an elitist power play. Sterling smirked, certain he had crushed a nobody. He had no idea that the woman he'd just humiliated was a corporate shark specializing in asset liquidation. While the crew prepared for takeoff, Olivia was already preparing a multi-billion-dollar execution that would turn their entire fraudulent airline into the kindling for her own massive profit. The fluorescent hum of JFK's Terminal 4 was a sound Dr. Olivia Clark knew better than her own heartbeat. It was the sound of commerce of transit, and usually of exhaustion. But today, it was the sound of victory. Or at least it was supposed to be. Olivia adjusted the oversized hood of her charcoal cashmere sweater, pulling it slightly lower over her eyes. She wasn't hiding exactly. She was just tired. After 72 hours of negotiating a hostile takeover in Zurich for one of the largest tech conglomerates in the world, she didn't want to be Dr. Clark's senior partner at Sterling and Oak Haven. She just wanted to be Viv. She wanted a ginger ale, a warm blanket, and the 6 hours of sleep she had paid $5,000 for in Seat 1A. She clutched her boarding pass, the paper crinkling slightly under her thumb. First class a treat to herself. Usually, the firm flew her private, but the storm over the Atlantic had grounded the corporate jets, forcing her onto a commercial flight with Regal Horizon Airlines. Zone 1 first class and Diamond Medallion members. "You are welcome to board," the gate agent announced. Her voice had that jagged, impatient edge common among staff who had been working double shifts during storm season. The name tag pinned to her polyester vest read Brenda. Olivia stood up, hefting her worn leather duffel bag. It was an expensive bag, vintage Italian leather worth more than the Honda Civic she drove in college, but it looked battered, loved. To the untrained eye, it looked old. To Brenda, the gate agent, it looked like trouble. As Olivia approached the lane, Brenda's eyes flicked up. She scanned Olivia from head to toe, the messy bun, the no makeup exhaustion, the hoodie, the sneakers. Brenda didn't see the Cartier watch peeking out from the sleeve. She saw a young black woman in casual clothes trying to cut the line. Brenda's hand shot out, blocking the scanner. "Ma'am, this is for Zone 1 only. Economy boarding is in 20 minutes. Please step back." Olivia paused, blinking slowly. She didn't have the energy for this. "I know. I'm in 1A. Brenda let out a short, sharp sigh, the kind that signaled she was dealing with a toddler. "Ma'am, please don't make a scene. Zone 1 is for first class. Check your ticket. You're likely Zone 4 or 5. Olivia didn't raise her voice. She didn't roll her neck. She simply extended her hand, presenting the ticket with the QR code facing up. "Scan it, Brenda." The use of her name made the gate agent bristle. Brenda snatched the ticket, her scanner beeping an angry affirmative green. 1A Clark V. Brenda stared at the screen, then back at Olivia. There was no apology, no smile, just a narrowed gaze of suspicion. Passport, she demanded, though she had already checked it moments ago during the initial document check. Olivia handed it over. Brenda flipped through it aggressively, bending the spine. She looked for a reason, any reason to deny entry. Finding none, she shoved the documents back across the counter. "Bored," Brenda muttered, looking past Olivia to the white man in the suit standing behind her. "Welcome aboard, Mr. Henderson. So glad to see you again," she chirped, her voice transforming instantly into syrupy customer service. Olivia walked down the jet bridge, the temperature dropping as she neared the fuselage. She felt that familiar prickle on the back of her neck. The microaggression was nothing new. It was the background radiation of her life. She usually ignored it, but today her patience was fraying. She stepped onto the plane. The first-class cabin was bathed in soft blue LED lighting. Jazz played quietly. She found Seat 1A, a spacious pod with lie-flat capabilities. She tossed her duffel into the overhead bin and sat down, closing her eyes. "Excuse me?" The voice was nasally and loud. Olivia opened one eye. Standing over her was a flight attendant. His badge read, Chadwick. He was tall, with gelled blonde hair and a smile that didn't reach his cold blue eyes. He was holding a manifest clipboard like a weapon. "Can I help you?" Olivia asked. "I think you're confused." Chadwick said, his volume loud enough that the businessman in 1B looked over. "This is the first-class cabin. Economy has passed the galley row 10 and back." Olivia sat up straighter. "I'm aware, Chadwick. This is my seat 1A. Chadwick chuckled, a condescending sound that grated on her nerves. "Let me see your boarding pass." For the second time in 10 minutes, Olivia had to prove she belonged. She pulled up the digital pass on her phone this time. Chadwick leaned in, squinting at the screen, hoping to find a Photoshop error. "It says 1A, he admitted, sounding disappointed. "But we have a discrepancy in the manifest. I'm going to need you to grab your bag and step out to the galley so we can sort this out." "Sort what out?" Olivia asked, her voice hardening. "I have a ticket. I am seated. The door is still open. If there is a discrepancy, you can check your computer right there. I'm not moving." "Ma'am?" Chadwick's voice dropped an octave, adopting the tone of a disciplinarian. "I need you to lower your voice. You are disturbing the other passengers." Olivia looked around. The cabin was silent. The businessman in 1B was pretending to read the Wall Street Journal, but he was watching. A woman in 2A was clutching her pearls. Olivia hadn't raised her voice above a conversational level. "I am not raising my voice," Olivia stated clearly, "and I'm not leaving this seat unless the plane is on fire." Chadwick straightened up, his jaw clenched. "I don't think you understand how this works. The captain has the final say on who flies. If you don't cooperate, I will have you removed as a security threat." A security threat. The magic words. The words that gave airline staff carte blanche to ruin lives. Olivia looked at Chadwick. She saw the smirk he was trying to hide. He wasn't doing this because of a manifest error. He was doing this because he saw a young black woman in a hoodie in the most expensive seat on the plane, and his worldview couldn't reconcile it. He wanted to put her in her place. Little did he know, Olivia Clark's place was usually at the head of a boardroom table, deciding which assets to strip from failing companies. "Go get the captain then," Olivia said, leaning back and crossing her legs. "I'd love to have a chat with him." Chadwick turned on his heel and stormed towards the cockpit. Olivia pulled out her phone. She didn't text her friends. She didn't tweet. She opened her secure work email and composed a message to her dedicated investigator, a man known only as Kessler. Subject: Regal Horizon Airlines. Flight 402. Crew names: Brenda Gate Chadwick, FA. Find me the leverage now. She hit send just as the cockpit door opened. The man who emerged from the cockpit looked like he had been cast in a movie about pilots from the 1970s. Captain Richard Sterling had silver hair, a square jaw, and an air of absolute unquestioned authority. He walked into the first-class cabin, not with a stride of curiosity, but with the heavy steps of a man coming to take out the trash. Chadwick trailed behind him, looking like a smug playground snitch. Captain Sterling stopped at row 1. He didn't look Olivia in the eye. He looked at the empty space above her head. Miss Sterling barked, "My flight leads me refusing crew instructions. I'm refusing to be harassed." Olivia corrected her voice, ice cold. "I have a valid ticket. Your colleague seems to think my presence here is a clerical error. If Mr. Miller asks you to verify your seat in the galley, you go to the galley," Sterling said, crossing his arms. "We have a weight and balance issue. We need to reshuffle some passengers. We need seat 1A for a deadheading pilot who needs to get to London for a flight tomorrow." The lie was so lazy it was almost insulting. Weight and balance on a Boeing 777. Moving a 130-pound woman from first to economy wasn't going to change the aerodynamics of a jumbo jet. And kicking a paying customer for a deadheading pilot was against the new FAA regulations. Regulations Olivia knew because she had helped draft the legal language for the passenger advocacy group that lobbed for them. Captain Sterling, Olivia said, reading his wings. "You and I both know that's a lie. You can't downgrade a revenue passenger for a non-revenue employee unless I volunteer, and I don't." Sterling's face turned a shade of crimson that clashed with his Navy uniform. He wasn't used to being cited regulations by passengers in hoodies. He was used to fear. He was used to compliance. Listen here. Sterling leaned in, invading her personal space. This isn't a debate. This is my aircraft. Under federal law, I can remove anyone who disrupts the flight crew. You are disrupting my crew. Now you can walk off on your own, or I can call Port Authority and have you dragged off in cuffs. And if that happens, I'll make sure you're placed on the national no-fly list. You'll never step foot on a plane again. The cabin was dead silent. The threat hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Olivia looked at the businessman in 1B. He looked away, terrified of becoming collateral damage. She looked at Chadwick, who was beaming with malicious delight. She realized then that this wasn't about the seat anymore. It wasn't even about the flight. This was a power play. They wanted to break her. They wanted her to cry, to scream, to give them the reaction that would justify their bias. Olivia took a slow breath. She felt the cold fury rising in her chest, a familiar sensation she usually reserved for courtrooms. The no-fly list, she repeated slowly. That's a serious threat, Captain. It's a promise, Sterling spat. Last chance. Olivia unbuckled her seatbelt. She stood up. She was 5'7", but in that moment she seemed to tower over the seated passengers. She smoothed down her hoodie. Fine, she said softly. I'll get off. Chadwick let out a loud, victorious exhale. Grab your bag. Let's go. Olivia reached up and pulled her duffel from the bin. She slung it over her shoulder. But before she moved to the aisle, she turned to face Captain Sterling directly. She looked him dead in the eyes, her gaze piercing through his bluster. I'm getting off, she said, her voice projecting clearly through the silent cabin. Not because you have the right to remove me, but because I refuse to give you the satisfaction of dragging me, but make no mistake, Captain Richard Sterling. This is the biggest mistake of your career. You have no idea who I am, do you? Sterling laughed, a harsh barking sound. I don't care who you are. You're a disruption. Get off my plane. I'm not a disruption, Olivia said, pulling her phone out and holding it up. The screen showed a recording timer. It had been running for 4 minutes. I'm the disruption manager. She turned to the rest of the cabin. My name is Dr. Olivia Clark. If anyone here records what happens next, send it to the email I'm airdropping to you now. You'll be compensated. She tapped her screen. A collective ding echoed through the cabin as a dozen iPhones received an airdrop request. Aero tip line. Chadwick lunged forward. You can't record the crew. That's illegal. Actually, in a public space, including a grounded aircraft with the door open. I absolutely can, Olivia retorted, stepping past him into the aisle. See you in court, Chadwick. And you, Captain. I hope you saved your pension. She walked off the plane, her head high, her heart pounding against her ribs. Behind her, she heard Sterling muttering, "Good riddance, close the door." As Olivia walked back up the jet bridge, the cold air of the terminal hitting her face, her phone buzzed. It was Kessler. Message. I'm in. Regal Horizons financials are a mess. They're leveraging a merger with Apex Air to save them from bankruptcy. The vote is next Tuesday. CEO Preston Vane is personally overseeing it. If this story breaks before Tuesday, the stock tanks and the merger dies. Olivia stopped in the middle of the terminal. People rushed past her, oblivious to the woman standing still in the chaos. A slow, dangerous smile spread across her face. They had threatened to put her on a no-fly list. They had treated her like a criminal. They had humiliated her. But they had forgotten one thing. Olivia Clark wasn't just a lawyer. She was a corporate shark who specialized in distressed assets. And Regal Horizon Airlines had just presented itself as the most distressed asset of all. She typed a reply to Kessler. Start the short sale and get me the personal number of the CEO of Apex Air. I have a merger to kill. She wasn't going to sue them for a refund. She was going to burn the airline to the ground, and she was going to use their own stock price as the kindling. Olivia didn't go home. Her apartment in Manhattan, a glass-walled sanctuary overlooking Central Park, felt too far away, too exposed. She needed a fortress. She needed neutral ground where she could think, plan, and sharpen the knife she was about to twist into the back of Regal Horizon Airlines. She took the Airer to the TWWA Hotel at JFK. It was an architectural marvel of mid-century aviation, a nostalgic shrine to the golden age of flying. The irony was not lost on her. She checked into the Howard Hughes suite, paying with the same black titanium credit card that Brenda, the gate agent, had assumed she didn't possess. Once the door clicked shut, the silence enveloped her. Olivia dropped her duffel bag on the plush red carpet. She walked to the bathroom and turned on the tap, splashing freezing cold water onto her face. She looked up at her reflection. The exhaustion was still there, etched in the dark circles under her eyes, but something else had settled in behind her irises. It was the cold, flat look of a predator spotting a wounded animal. Her hands were shaking. Not from fear, but from a rage so pure it felt like a chemical burn in her veins. She sat on the edge of the bed and pulled out her laptop, a sleek, custom-built machine she used for secure corporate espionage and high-frequency trading. She opened the video file she had recorded on the plane. She watched it. "I'm going to need you to grab your bag and step out to the galley." Chadwick's voice dripped with unearned superiority. "We have a weight and balance issue." Captain Sterling's lie was even more pathetic on playback. "I'll make sure you're placed on the national no-flee list." Olivia paused the video on Sterling's face. He looked so confident, so assured of his power. He thought he was the law at 30,000 feet. He didn't realize he had just threatened a woman who had written amicus briefs for the Supreme Court before she turned 30. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. It was Kessler. "Talk to me," Olivia said, putting him on speaker as she poured herself a sparkling water from the minibar. "I've been digging into the skeletons." Kessler's voice was growly, the sound of a man who lived in server rooms and smoke. "And Viv, it's a graveyard. Regal Horizon isn't just struggling. They are bleeding out. They've been cooking the books to keep the stock price inflated for this merger with Apex Air. How bad? Fraudulent bad. They're deferring maintenance costs to boost quarterly profits. They're classifying mandatory engine overhauls as capital improvements to hide the expense. If Apex Air finds out the merger is dead. If the FAA finds out the fleet is grounded." Olivia stared out the window at the runway, watching a Regal Horizon jet taxiing for takeoff. And the CEO, Preston Vane. "What's his exposure?" "He's leveraged to the hilt," Kessler explained, the clicking of his keyboard audible in the background. "His entire compensation package is tied to the stock price hitting $45 a share by next Friday. That's the merger deadline. If the stock drops below $30, he gets margin called on his personal loans. He loses his Hamptons estate, his yacht, everything." Olivia smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "So he needs calm waters for 7 days?" "Exactly. He needs the public to believe Regal Horizon is a premium, stable, family-friendly airline." And instead, Olivia murmured, "He's going to get me." She opened her brokerage account. The interface was a complex array of graphs and ticking numbers. She navigated to the options market. Ticker RHA, Regal Horizon Airlines. Current price $42.50. "Kessler, I want you to look into Captain Sterling's background too. I want to know if he has a history of weight and balance issues with minority passengers. Already on it, I found 3 complaints in the last 2 years, all dismissed by HR. One was a decorated Marine he kicked off for insubordination. The pilot is a liability they kept protecting." "Good," Olivia said. "Send me the files." She looked back at her screen. She had liquid assets, available bonus money from the Zurich deal. Savings investments. She moved $3 million into her active trading account. She didn't buy Regal Horizon stock. She bought put options, thousands of them. For the uninitiated, a put option is a bet that a stock will crash. If Regal Horizon stayed stable, Olivia would lose the $3 million. It would vanish. But if the stock tanked, if it plummeted in a ball of fire, she would make 10, maybe 20 times her investment. She set the strike price at $30. "Order placed," she whispered. She wasn't just going to expose them. She was going to profit from their destruction. It was the ultimate karma. She would take the money they made by cutting corners and oppressing passengers and she would funnel it right into her own bank account. "Kessler," she said, her voice dropping lower. "Get the video ready. Scrub the metadata so they can't trace the upload location. We launch at dawn." "Copy that. What's the caption?" Olivia thought for a moment. She looked at the frozen image of Chadwick and Sterling, the gatekeepers of the sky. Caption it. "The Friendly Skies. Meet the crew of Flight 4002 and tag Preston Vane directly." She hung up. The room was silent again, but the air felt charged heavy with the electricity of an approaching storm. Olivia lay back on the bed, fully clothed. She didn't sleep. She watched the ceiling, visualizing the dominoes lining up one by one. Tomorrow, the world would see what happened. Tomorrow, Preston Vane would wake up to a nightmare. Tomorrow, the war began. The internet is a sleeping giant, but it is a light sleeper. At 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, the video went live. It wasn't posted from Olivia's personal account. It was uploaded to a burner account on X, formerly Twitter, named Justice in the Air, and simultaneously sent to 3 major Reddit communities: Our Public Freakout, Our Travel Nightmares, and Our Legal Advice. The first hour was slow. A few hundred views, a handful of comments like, "Wow, what a jerk," and "Airlines are the worst." But by 8 a.m., the algorithm caught the scent of blood. The video was perfect rage bait, but it was also undeniable evidence. It was steady high definition thanks to the latest iPhone Pro, and the audio was crisp. It showed a calm, articulate black woman being berated by 2 white men who were visibly flustered by her intelligence. It showed the threat. It showed the lie. By 9 a.m., it was trending in New York. By 10 a.m., it was the #1 trend in the United States. #boycott Regal began to climb the charts. _Regal Horizon headquarters, Chicago, Illinois. The executive suite of Regal Horizon was a glass tower that scraped the clouds, a physical manifestation of the company's hubris. Preston Vane sat at his mahogany desk nursing a double espresso. He was a man of 55, tanned, silver-haired, and dressed in a suit that cost more than a flight attendant made in a year. He was reviewing the merger documents for the Apex deal. The numbers looked good. The synergies were excellent. He was about to become the king of the aviation industry. His office door burst open. Preston didn't look up. "Sarah, I told you no interruptions until the board meeting." Sarah Jenkins, the Vice President of Public Relations, didn't apologize. She looked pale. Her usually immaculate hair was slightly disheveled, as if she had been running her hands through it. She was holding a tablet like it was a live grenade. "Preston, you need to see this now." "What is it? Did the union reject the contract?" "Worse." Sarah placed the tablet on his desk. "Flight 402 out of JFK yesterday. A removal." Preston leaning back in his leather chair. "Sarah, we remove passengers every day. Drunks, unruly idiots, people who won't wear seatbelts. Issue a voucher, apologize, and move on. Just watch." Preston hit play. He watched Olivia Clark refuse to move. He watched Chadwick sneer. He heard Captain Sterling threaten the no-fly list. "She's articulate," Preston noted, frowning. "Who is she?" "We don't know yet. The manifest says V. Clark. She booked first-class full fare. No frequent flyer number attached, which is odd for someone flying up front." "Okay." Preston waved his hand dismissively. "So we have a rogue captain. Put Sterling on administrative leave pending an investigation. Issue a statement saying Regal Horizon values diversity and inclusion. Blah, blah, blah. You know the drill. Bury it." "We can't bury it, Preston. It has 4 million views. It's been up for 3 hours." Preston froze. 4 million. And the comments, they aren't just bots. It's verified users, journalists, senators. Senator Higgins just tweeted that he wants an inquiry into our use of the no-fly list as a coercion tool. Preston stood up and walked to the window. The city of Chicago sprawled below him. It'll blow over. The news cycle is 24 hours. By tomorrow, they'll be mad about a celebrity breakup. Just put out the standard apology. Sarah tapped the screen again. "There's one more thing. The passenger." She threatened to sue, but not just sue. She said she's the disruption manager. She looked expensive. Preston, that hoodie was cashmere. That watch was a Cartier tank. This wasn't a college student. I don't care if she's the Queen of England. Preston snapped, his stress levels rising. We are 4 days away from the merger vote. If the stock wobbles, the Apex board gets cold feet. Fix this, Sarah. Find out who she is. Offer her $50,000 to sign an NDA and get that video taken down. 50,000. Make it 100. Just shut her up. Underscore, 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 to Hotel Noon. Olivia sat in the lobby lounge, sipping a latte. Her laptop was open. She watched the official statement from Regal Horizon appear on their Twitter feed. We are aware of an incident on Flight 42. Regal Horizon is committed to the safety of all passengers. We are investigating the situation to ensure protocol was followed. We apologize for any inconvenience. Olivia let out a dry laugh. Inconvenience. They called racial profiling and unlawful removal an inconvenience. And worse, they used the passive voice. Protocol was followed. They were doubling down. They were betting that she was a nobody who would fade away. Wrong move, Preston, she whispered. She opened her email. Kessler had sent the file. It was a dossier on Captain Richard Sterling. It contained photos, HR complaints, and a particularly damning report from a co-pilot 3 years ago that alleged Sterling had been drinking the night before a flight. A report that disappeared from the official record after Sterling's brother-in-law, a regional director at Regal, intervened. Olivia didn't release that yet. That was ammunition for later. Instead, she decided to introduce herself. She drafted a new post. This time, she didn't use a burner account. She logged into her LinkedIn profile. Dr. Olivia Clark, Senior Partner, Sterling and O'Haven Vertical Bar Mergers and Acquisitions. Specialist Vertical Bar, J.D. Harvard Law Connections, 1,500 plus, including CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. She wrote to Regal Horizon Airlines and Mr. Preston Vane this morning. You issued a statement calling the assault on my civil liberties an inconvenience. You claimed you are investigating whether protocol was followed. Let me save you the legal fees. I am the woman in the video. I am not a security threat. I am a senior partner at Sterling and Oakhaven, specializing in corporate liability and distressed asset liquidation. You didn't just kick a passenger off a plane. You violated 14 CFR Section 382. You breached your contract of carriage and you attempted to weaponize the Department of Homeland Security's no-fly list to cover up a staffing error. This is not a customer service dispute. This is a systemic fraud. I don't want a voucher. I don't want a refund. I want full transparency on your weight and balance logs for the last 5 years. If you do not produce them by 9 a.m. tomorrow, I will begin releasing my own findings regarding your liquidity and maintenance deferrals. The clock is ticking. Signed, Dr. Olivia Clark. She hit post. Within seconds, the post was shared by her network. Lawyers, bankers, hedge fund managers, tech moguls. The business world stopped. Back in Chicago, Preston Bain's phone began to ring. It wasn't Sarah Jenkins this time. It was the CEO of Apex Air. Preston, the voice on the line, was icy cold. Who the hell is Olivia Clark? And why is she threatening to audit your maintenance logs on LinkedIn? Preston felt the blood drain from his face. He looked at the stock ticker on his wall. RHA, $39. It had dropped $3 in 10 minutes. It's a misunderstanding, Jim. I'm handling it. Handle it fast, Preston, because if she finds anything at all, the deal is off and I'll sue you for breach of contract myself. The line went dead. Preston stared at the phone. He realized with a sinking feeling in his gut that the woman in the hoodie wasn't just a passenger. She was the executioner, and he had just handed her the axe. The morning sun over JFK Airport was a hazy industrial grey filtering through the thick, soundproof glass of the TWA Hotel. Inside the Howard Hughes suite, the air was still and cold-conditioned to a precise 68 degrees. Olivia sat in a high-backed velvet chair facing the door. She was dressed now, not in a hoodie, but in a tailored silk blouse and slacks that cost more than the furniture she was sitting on. She wore her Cartier watch. She was ready. She checked the time. 8:15 a.m. Kessler's voice crackled through the encrypted speaker on the desk. "They're in the lobby. Viv 2 suits. One is Arthur Cole Regal's general counsel. The other is a fixer named Marcus Thorne, ex-CIA, handles their sensitive personnel issues. They aren't carrying settlement papers. They're carrying a shovel." "Let them up," Olivia said, her voice steady. "I've been expecting them. You sure you don't want me in the room?" "No. If you're there, it looks like a negotiation. If I'm alone, it looks like an execution. I want them to feel overconfident." She cut the connection. A moment later, there was a heavy, authoritative knock at the door. Olivia didn't stand up. "It's open." The door swung inward. Arthur Cole entered first. He was a small man with nervous energy and a suit that was slightly too large, as if he had shrunk under the weight of his recent stress. Marcus Thorne followed a wall of muscle in a charcoal suit, with eyes that scanned the room for cameras before landing on Olivia. Cole cleared his throat, closing the door behind them. "Dr. Clark, I'm Arthur Cole, General Counsel for Regal Horizon. This is my associate, Mr. Thorne." Olivia gestured to the empty sofa. "I didn't order room service, gentlemen, but since you're here, you have 45 minutes before my deadline." Cole didn't sit. He placed a leather briefcase on the coffee table and clicked the latches open. He pulled out a single thick document and a check. He slid them across the marble surface toward her. "We are prepared to acknowledge that the crew of Flight 4002 acted zealously." Cole began, his voice practiced and smooth. "We are prepared to offer you a settlement of $500,000 for the distress caused. In exchange, you will sign this non-disclosure agreement, delete all recordings, and issue a public retraction stating that the situation was a misunderstanding caused by your own refusal to comply with safety protocols." Olivia didn't look at the check. She looked at Cole. "You want me to take $500,000 to lie?" Thorne spoke up, his voice a low rumble. "We want you to take $500,000 to go back to your life, Dr. Clark, because the alternative is that we open a file on you. We know about the Zurich deal. We know about the hostile takeover of Techline in 2018. We can paint you as a corporate raider who staged this entire event to short the stock. We can bury you in litigation for the next 10 years. You'll never work in M&A again. It was a good threat standard, brutal, effective against 99% of the population." Olivia finally stood up. She walked over to the table, picked up the check, and held it up to the light. $500,000, she mused. That's about what Preston Vane spends on catering for his quarterly board meetings. She ripped the check in half then, in quarters. She let the pieces flutter to the floor like confetti. Cole's face twitched. "Dr. Clark, you are making a grave mistake." "No, Arthur." Olivia said, her voice dropping to a terrifyingly calm register. "You are. You think this is about money? You think I'm shaking you down for a payout. You looked into my background, but you didn't look deep enough." She walked to her laptop and turned the screen around so they could see it. It displayed a spreadsheet, not a financial one, but a maintenance log. "This," Olivia said, pointing to the screen, "is the engine maintenance schedule for your Boeing 777 fleet. Specifically, the Pratt & Whitney engines on tails N4002RH through N450R. According to FAA regulations, these engines require a C-check overhaul every 6,000 flight cycles. Your records show you're at 6,500 cycles on 12 aircraft. You falsified the logs to extend their life so you wouldn't have to take them out of service before the Apex merger." Cole went deathly pale. He looked at Thorne, panic flaring in his eyes. "How? Where did you get that?" "It doesn't matter," Olivia said. "What matters is that flying those planes is a federal crime. It's reckless endangerment, and it's fraud." She checked her watch. 8:55 a.m. You have 5 minutes to get out of my suite, Olivia said. At 9 a.m., this file goes to the FAA, the SEC, and the Board of Directors at Apex Air. Thorne took a step forward, his physical presence looming. You send that and you destroy a legacy company. You put 10,000 people out of work. Don't put that on me. Olivia snapped her eyes, flashing fire. But you destroyed this company when you decided that profit was more important than safety. You destroyed it when you decided a black woman in first class was a target instead of a customer. You lit the fuse. I'm just letting it burn. We can double the offer. Cole stammered, sweat beading on his forehead. 1 million? 2 million? Name your price. My price, Olivia said, walking to the door and holding it open. Is Preston Vane's resignation, and since you can't give me that in 4 minutes, get out. Thorne stared at her for a long moment, assessing the threat. He realized, perhaps for the first time in his career, that he couldn't intimidate this target. She wasn't scared. She was eager. He grabbed his briefcase. Let's go, Arthur. They hurried out into the hallway. Olivia slammed the door shut and locked it. She walked back to her desk. Her heart was hammering against her ribs, but her hands were steady. It was 8:59 a.m. She typed a short message to Kessler. Burn it down. At 9 a.m., she hit send. Wall Street is not a place of emotion. It is a place of reaction. It is a machine that eats data and spits out prices. And at 9:05 a.m., the machine began to choke on Regal Horizon Airlines. The email Olivia sent didn't just go to a generic inbox. It went to the personal emails of the top investigators at the Federal Aviation Administration. It contained 3 gigabytes of data, internal memos, altered logs, and whistleblower testimony Kessler had scraped from the dark web. By 9:30 a.m., the market opened. RHA opened $38.50. By 9:45 a.m., the rumor hit the floor. The FAA had announced an emergency unplanned audit of Regal Horizon RHA $3,210. In the Chicago headquarters, the atmosphere was apocalyptic. Phones were ringing off the hooks. Investors, journalists, regulators. Preston Vane was in his office screaming into a headset. It's a lie. It's a fabricated smear campaign by a disgruntled passenger. Tell the press we are suing her for defamation. But the market didn't believe him. The market saw the data. Olivia sat in her hotel room watching the graph on her screen. It was a red line plunging vertically. It was beautiful. Her put options, which she had bought for pennies on the dollar, were now exploding in value. Every dollar the stock dropped, she made hundreds of thousands. RHA, $28. Preston Bain's margin call hit at 10:15 a.m. His broker called him demanding collateral. Vane didn't have it. His assets were frozen. In the span of an hour, his personal net worth had evaporated, but the real twist was yet to come. Desperate to save himself, Vane made a fatal calculation. He needed a scapegoat. He couldn't blame the maintenance logs. That was too high up. He needed to blame the incident that started it all. He needed to blame the crew. At 11 a.m., Regal Horizon issued a press release. Regal Horizon Airlines is appalled by the behavior of Captain Richard Sterling and flight attendant Chadwick Miller on Flight 42. Their actions were rogue, unauthorized, and violated our core values. Effective immediately. Both employees have been terminated for cause. We are cooperating fully with the FAA. Olivia read the release and raised an eyebrow. Predictable, she murmured. Divide and conquer. She picked up her phone. She knew what would happen next. Underscore, 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 underscore. Queens, New York, Captain Sterling's residence. Richard Sterling sat in his living room, still in his pajama bottoms, a glass of scotch in his hand. The TV was blaring the news. CNN was showing his face's name, under the headline, Rogue Pilot Blamed for Regal Horizon Crisis. His phone buzzed. It was a notification from the company portal access denied. His pension, his healthcare, His 40 years of service. Gone. They had thrown him to the wolves. Vane, the man who had personally told him to keep the flights moving at all costs, was now calling him a rogue agent. Sterling looked at the bottle of scotch. He looked at his wings on the dresser. The anger that welled up inside him wasn't the petty annoyance he had felt towards the woman in seat 1A. It was a profound, earth-shattering betrayal. He realized the woman was right. She had told him, "I hope you saved your pension." He hadn't, but he had saved something else. He went to his home office. In the bottom drawer of his desk, locked in a fireproof box, was a journal. It was a personal log he had kept for 10 years. Pilots talk, mechanics talk. He had written it all down. Every time operations forced him to fly with a minor fault. Every time they ignored a warning light. Every time Vane had sent a memo pushing for efficiency over caution. He picked up his phone. He didn't call the union. He didn't call his lawyer. He opened the airdrop link that was still saved in his recent history, the email address the woman had broadcasted to the cabin. Airline tip line. He dialed the number attached to the email signature. It rang twice. "This is Kessler. This is Captain Richard Sterling," he said, his voice raspy but firm. "I want to talk to Dr. Clark." There was a pause on the line. Then a click. "Captain Sterling." Olivia's voice came through. It wasn't mocking. It was business. "I read the press release. They really hung you out to dry, didn't they? They took everything Sterling said. My pension, my reputation. I told you they would," Olivia replied. "Preston Vane doesn't care about loyalty. He cares about survival." "I have leverage," Sterling said. "I have a journal, dates, times, flight numbers, specific conversations with Vane, where he ordered us to ignore safety warnings to keep the schedule." Olivia sat up straighter in her hotel room. This was it, the nail in the coffin. The maintenance logs were data. This was intent. This turned a regulatory fine into a criminal conspiracy. "Why give it to me?" Olivia asked. "I'm the one who got you fired." "No," Sterling said, a bit of clarity in his voice. "I got myself fired when I underestimated you. But Vane is the one who ordered the hit. If I'm going down, I'm taking the king with me. Do you want the journal or not? I'll have a courier at your house in 20 minutes, Olivia said. "Don't open the door for anyone else." She hung up. Underscore, 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 1 p.m. The death blow. By early afternoon, the story shifted. It wasn't just about a racist incident anymore. It was about melt safety. The FAA issued a formal ground stop order for all Regal Horizon Boeing 777 aircraft pending inspection. Screens across airports worldwide flashed red. Cancelled, cancelled, cancelled. Thousands of passengers were stranded. The chaos was absolute. Apex Air released a short statement at 1:30 p.m. In light of recent revelations regarding safety compliance and financial transparency, Apex Air is officially terminating the merger agreement with Regal Horizon Airlines. We are exploring legal action for breach of disclosure. The stock ticker gave one final shudder, RHA $1,240. Olivia closed her position. She had invested $3 million. She cashed out at $42 million. She sat back in her chair, the adrenaline slowly fading, replaced by a deep, cold exhaustion. She had done it. In less than 24 hours, she had dismantled a Fortune 500 company. She had humiliated the men who tried to humiliate her. She had made a fortune. But it wasn't over. Not completely. Her phone rang. The caller ID displayed a number she didn't recognize, but the area code was Chicago. She answered, "Dr. Clark, UB asterisk." Preston Vane's voice was unrecognizable. A wet, garbled sound of a man who had been crying, or drinking, or both. "You've ruined my life. Do you know what you've done? You've destroyed an American institution." "I didn't destroy it," Preston, Olivia said, her voice calm and soothing, like a doctor pronouncing a time of death. "I just turned on the lights. The rot was already there." "I'm going to kill you," Vane hissed. "I'm going to find you, and I'm recording this call." Preston, she interrupted. Add uttering threats to the list of charges the FBI will be filing. Oh, and by the way, Captain Sterling sends his regards. We have his journals. I suggest you get a very good lawyer, though. At this point, I doubt you can afford one. She hung up the phone. She blocked the number. She stood up and walked to the window of the TWWA hotel, looking out at the tarmac. A Regal Horizon plane was being towed away from the gate, dark and empty. It was time to go home. 2 weeks later, the atmosphere at Teterboro Airport was distinctly different from the chaos of JFK. It was quiet, smelling of jet fuel and money. The rain that had hammered New York for days had finally cleared, leaving the sky a piercing, unforgiving blue. Dr. Olivia Clark stood on the tarmac, the wind whipping the hem of her trench coat. She wasn't holding a boarding pass this time. She was holding a gavel, metaphorically speaking. In the 14 days since she had walked off flight 402, the empire of Regal Horizon Airlines had crumbled with the speed and violence of a controlled demolition. The fallout had been absolute. On Tuesday, the SEC suspended trading of RHA stock. On Wednesday, the Federal Aviation Administration permanently revoked Regal Horizon's operating certificate, citing systemic and criminal negligence. On Friday, the board of directors fired Preston Vane in a unanimous vote, though it hardly mattered. The company filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy liquidation the following morning. Olivia watched as a black SUV pulled up to the private hangar. The door opened and a man stepped out. It wasn't a lawyer or a pilot. It was the lead agent from the Southern District of New York, followed closely by a camera crew that had been tipped off. Behind the chain-link fence, the paparazzi flashbulbs erupted like lightning. Preston Vane was led out of the hangar in handcuffs. He looked like a ghost of the man who had ordered the disruption to be silenced. His silver hair was unkempt, his suit jacket was missing, and his eyes were hollow. He didn't look at the cameras. He looked at the ground, shuffling toward the federal vehicle that would take him to arraignment. The charges were heavy: securities fraud, wire fraud, and conspiracy to defraud the United States. Thanks to Captain Sterling's journals, which detailed Vane's direct orders to falsify safety records, he was looking at 20 years in federal prison. Olivia didn't smile. She didn't cheer. She simply watched from the distance, her face an unreadable mask of stone. Justice wasn't about happiness. It was about balance. The scales had tipped, and she had righted them. Dr. Clark. She turned. Standing beside her was Kessler, holding a thick portfolio. He looked tired but satisfied. The auction just closed. Kessler said, handing her the file. The bankruptcy court accepted the bid. Olivia opened the folder. Inside was the asset transfer agreement. Regal Horizon was dead, but its bones were still valuable. The slots at Heathrow, the gates at JFK, and the fleet of Boeing 777s, now grounded but repairable. Olivia hadn't just walked away with her $42 million in profit. She had reinvested it. She had formed a consortium with Apex Air, the very company Vane had tried to merge with. But in this new deal, Apex didn't buy Regal Horizon. Olivia's private equity firm bought the distressed assets for pennies on the dollar. "It's official," Olivia said, tracing her signature on the bottom line. "We own the fleet. What about the staff?" Kessler asked. "The good ones, the mechanics who were forced to lie, the flight attendants who are just doing their jobs." "Rehire them," Olivia commanded. "With Bouquet, implement a new safety culture. Anyone who reports a safety violation gets a bonus, not a reprimand. We're going to build a new airline out of this wreckage. One that actually respects the people inside the metal tube, and the bad apples Brenda at the gate, Chadwick, the rest of Vane's inner circle." Olivia closed the folder with a sharp snap. "Blacklisted. Ensure their names are flagged in every HR database in the aviation industry. They won't even be able to get a job checking bags." She walked toward the waiting Gulfstream G650. This was her victory lap. She was flying to Zurich to finalize the paperwork. As she climbed the stairs, the pilot, a young black woman with 4 stripes on her shoulders, stood at the door to greet her. "Welcome aboard, Dr. Clark," the pilot said, her smile genuine and warm. We're ready when you are. Olivia paused at the threshold. She looked back at the airport one last time. Somewhere in the distance, a Regal Horizon sign was being taken down, the letters clattering to the pavement one by one. She thought about the moment in seat 1A, the feeling of powerlessness, the way they had looked at her hoodie, and assumed she was nothing. She touched the zipper of her jacket, feeling the cold metal. They tried to silence a black woman on a flight. They tried to erase her. Instead, she had erased them. Olivia stepped into the cabin, the soft leather and quiet luxury embracing her. She sat in seat 1A, her seat, and buckled the belt. "Let's fly," she whispered. The door closed, sealing out the noise of the world. The engines roared to life, not with the shudder of a dying company, but with the smooth, powerful hum of ownership. As the jet lifted off, banking sharply over the New York skyline, Olivia Clark didn't look down. She only looked forward. The sky belonged to her now. And that is how Regal Horizon Airlines ceased to exist. In the end, it wasn't the bad engines or the debt that killed them. It was the arrogance. It was the fatal mistake of judging a book by its cover, not realizing that the book was a legal scholar with the power to rewrite their entire history. Preston Bain lost his freedom. Captain Sterling lost his career, but regained his conscience. And Dr. Olivia Clark, she proved that in the modern world, the most dangerous weapon isn't a gun or a bomb. It's information wielded by someone who knows exactly how to use it. The next time you're at an airport and you see someone in a hoodie sitting quietly in the corner, remember this story. Be kind. Be respectful, because you never know who is holding the detonator. What an incredible story of karma and justice. It just goes to show that you should never underestimate anyone. What would you have done if you were in Olivia's shoes? Would you have taken the settlement money, or would you have burned the company down like she did? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into corporate revenge and justice, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss a story. I've got another insane revenge tale coming up next week that you won't believe.